Scene one, Apple, take one.
Welcome to another. My name is Shane Borza, and on this show, we interview and I introduce you to people in the industry and get their notes on how they got started, what they've learned, and how by listening to their story, that might help you with your project or what you want to do in the industry. I'm excited to reconnect with an old friend who I haven't seen in several years named Jessica Wolff, and she is a multi-hyphenate, which is my favorite kind of people, an actor or actress, I should say, stunt woman, and she also plays music. She's coming to us from Finland today, so welcome across the timeline, and I'm so glad you're here on the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
So I wanted to start off, because I just introduced you as this kind of multi-role performer, to ask, which one of those came first? What brought you into the industry? Was it stunts? Was it acting? Was it because you were a musician and you want to do other creative things? How did all that come about for you?
Well, I started playing piano when I was 7, so I guess in that sense, music came first. But I remember I was 9 years old when I decided that I want to become a singer and an actress. Like, it was just like a decision I made, because before that I wanted to become a detective or Tarzan, but I realized that's not a profession. So I started to go through all the professions my little mind could think of, and when it landed on music and acting, I was like, okay, that's it. I want to do both. So I loved action movies as a kid. I was very interested in martial arts. So I guess that's how the stunts later came about. But I started singing when I was 12. Then I started doing performing in musicals when I was like 13, 14. And I until I was like 16. So that's where the acting part also like got triggered for me. So I got to act. And then I started to write my own music. And then I went to an acting school. And as I was in this acting school and I was practicing training, acrobatics for this, it was like a musical or like a performance, I stumbled across these stunt guys. So basically they were just practicing, doing fight choreographies, filming it, and it just looked so much fun. And I was like, what are they doing? I want to do that. So always loving or having an interest for martial arts, it was a perfect combination. I could do acting and doing like fight scenes at the same time. So that was just perfect combination. So I just joined this stunt group, and actually then I realized that I really have to know how to do martial arts for real. So that was 2009, and 2010 I started practicing wushu kung fu. 3 years later I also started with kickboxing, and I'm still practicing both of them. And yeah, that's how I got started. And then eventually from there, I just made fight scenes every weekend in these short movies. And through that, I started to branch out to other indie films. I did a lot of work for free in the beginning, just because it was so much fun. And then eventually, I started to get paid for that. And I also went to study some more acting, both like in Los Angeles and in Finland. So yeah, it was quite a unnatural path for me, so to speak.
I was laughing to myself when you mentioned Tarzan, because I was thinking about you now and saying, well, in a way, you did figure out how to be Tarzan, because I've seen some of your work and it's amazing to see all the movement and everything, the physicality. One thing I think that people may not realize, like you mentioned, it is such a combination of the acting and the action. Even if you don't have any dialogue, you have to have that presence and really communicate, to the audience, the other actors, or the camera, like what the intention is.
Yeah.
Well, we're about to fight, and you can tell, not because I said anything, but you can see that kind of
it's like
emotion coming off. So talk to me a little bit about how, as you studied, like you mentioned, pursuing more acting training, like in LA or in Finland,
Yeah.
how you not only built up the study of like continuing to study the martial arts and getting better at that, but also learning more about acting, and then how did those two perhaps work together or get in each other's way? Like, what experience did you have with both of those worlds?
Uh, well, so I mean, I think it's really important also with the acting. If I don't have a product in a while, I will try to find something because I don't want to get rusty. I want to keep that thing going. And so how to juggle between these things and also the music career. So I always go with like one project or something is like the main thing. So let's say if I have a tour coming out with the music, I'm not gonna let martial arts training go before the band trainings, so to speak. So I put like all about the music first, and what I can fit in, I will fit in. And it usually works out. Then, for instance, so I had a tour in Europe, and then after the tour, I was filming a movie in Australia. And so as soon as I get home from the tour, my main focus is on that. So it's and of course sometimes, but rarely, you have to choose. But for some reason, the last 14 years, I didn't have many times when I had to choose one or the other, or that it always somehow worked out. I don't know how. But they support each other. When I practice martial arts, it supports my stunt training. My stunt training supports martial arts. And also, as you said, with action, you also have to act. And you, even if there's no dialogue, but you get really used to being on set. You get used to that environment. You get used to, acting even without the dialogue. And funny enough, but music also supports acting, because you have to get really in touch with your emotions. And that's all what acting is about. So they actually support each other as well.
The first thing that came up while you're talking about that is how I think a lot of people outside of the industry don't realize how many hats we all wear. And I mean, even the quote famous people, they're acting, they're writing, they're producing, they're directing, they're doing all of these things simultaneously, or they're alternating. Like, they're an actor in this movie and then they're directing that movie. So they are doing a lot of things, and those all do work together. Or like you talked about, paralleling, I would look at it and say, oh, she's just a performer. Sometimes she's performing on stage with a mic. Sometimes she's performing, in the dojo or at the stunt academy. Sometimes she's performing in front of a camera, and you just like learned how to perform in all of these different arenas. And like you mentioned, they can kind of help each other, and they can build your skill sets, but also you're going kind of deeper and wider. Does that all sound right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I released my third album right before the pandemic, and my record label like, we need a music video. I was thinking, okay, I have a very low budget. What can I do to make it cool? So I made like this story, and I include a lot of action in it. So I got to produce that music video, and it did require quite a lot of acting. I even brought my husband with me because I had a kissing scene there. I wanted it to look natural, and I brought in my stunt friends, to help me out. So that's a good example of producing it, kind of directing it in a way, and also acting in it and singing. So it was a nice, it's a nice way of bringing all of those together.
Speaking of music videos, here it is, Superhero by Jessica Wolff.
You say you need nobody. Here we go again. What do you
Now, I want to just thread back to, I mentioned we met years before, and we were talking before we started rolling. It was the AOF Film Festival in 2016, but you also mentioned like studying acting in LA. So how did you end up with those connections and coming over to the US and getting some of that stuff going? And how much, like you also mentioned doing a movie in Australia. So how much of this kind of global domination is going on by you going all over the world and doing these things? And how is that all happening?
Oh, well, actually, the movie in Australia that actually happened through AOF, you know. So I was part of a short film, and somehow, yeah, it ended up in Action of Film. I got contacted by Del Weston, and he asked me to come over and also to perform a bit. And then I met somebody who wanted me in his film later in Australia, and also found a guy in Germany has a record label. So I ended up with that record label and went to tour in Europe, which is, interesting. But yeah, so I have traveled here and there for acting, which is great because I love traveling and adventures. And the best one for me was one of my dreams came true, because as a kid, when I said that I decided I want to be an actress, my biggest dream was to have one of the main roles in an action adventure movie in an exotic country. And then I think 2020 or 21, I can't remember which year it was. I was part of this movie, but an old friend contacted me and said he's making a movie in Iran. And I had worked with him on a couple of projects like 10 years before. And he asked if I wanted to play the main character for this movie. So that was one of the most amazing projects I've been a part of. Because Iran is not the first country you think about if you want to go for holidays, So we did film it. I was there for a month in Tehran during the pandemic. And yeah, it was the first time a Western woman has ever acted in an Iranian movie. So it was quite, exciting and interesting, and nobody spoke English. So it was very interesting to be on set and how to communicate with people without words. That was, just amazing journey. I have 100 of things I could tell about this. So maybe if you ask me something.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up, because again, you were filling me in on some of what you've been doing since we met a few years ago. And when you mentioned that, I immediately thought, wow, that's a great focus for the talk, because I think a number of reasons, it's a pandemic film, which some people just paused everything and said, we're not going to make anything for a couple of years. Other people really tried to figure out, with restrictions, how can we continue to make stuff? But also, like you mentioned, there are certain places that I think some people lean into and say, oh, that's an exotic, foreign, different place. Let's go tell a story there. And other people might shy away from that and be like, they might feel like, well, I don't know anyone there, or the communication is going to be hard, or like, how are we going to do it? And all they see are the difficulties. So talk to me a little bit about how you went through those things, like shooting during the pandemic, figuring out how to communicate when nobody spoke a common language, because I'm sure there's a lot of learning there for everybody listening.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so almost the whole team had a COVID before I came. There were about like 40 people in the crew. And that was before the vaccinations. So of course it was like very strict with the visas, to get the right visas. And so the guy who made the movie, his producer and the co-star, and also the director, he's originally from Iran, but he has been living in Finland and lives now in Los Angeles for many years. So that's how we could make the movie in Iran, because he's Iranian, So that's just good to mention, because it's not like anyone can just go and make a movie in Iran. It doesn't really work that way. So, but when I got there, it was extremely strict that people were wearing masks. And whenever I was without a mask, it's really, really important that people like had the masks on. Because if I would get sick, it would, the production would, there wouldn't be a movie. It's still like an indie movie, so the budget wouldn't run out. They could not afford to have like 3 weeks without filming. So whenever I was eating somewhere, I had like, they just put like an own table somewhere in a corner, and I was just like, hi guys. But I guess one of the most challenging aspects of that was whenever I had a day off, or if I finished early and I came to the hotel room, I was not allowed to leave the hotel, right? But the TV wasn't working. You shouldn't bring books to Iran, so I didn't have any books with me, because then, it's just better not to, because they may take them from you at the customs. And Netflix doesn't work, YouTube doesn't work, Facebook doesn't work, so it's like a pandemic, isolation without TV. The TV didn't work either. So without TV or movies or books in a hotel room. So you got to figure out how to, spend that time. And also the only place where I actually had Wi-Fi was in my cupboard. So whenever I wanted to try to do a WhatsApp call, I had to go sit in my closet. But yeah, so I was working out in my hotel room, doing deadlifts with my bed, and trying to figure out these small routines, working on the character, playing solitaire on my phone a lot, and meditating a lot, and just it was a very good time to take that time to myself, because it's not very often you do get to be in such quietness with yourself. So it's a very good time for reflection on things. So that was that part. The other one, how I figured out the communication. Well, the very first day, I just got I had a driver picking me up. The driver could speak English. That was great, but he was not around me very much. It was just when he was driving. So I get into this office and I go they go like, Jessica, and I was like, Salam. And then somebody goes like, Jessica, and points me to one direction. So I go into a room, and they're, the costume designers, and they just like start to dress me in different things and just talking. And I was just like, oh, okay, all right, yeah, all right. And then at some point, somebody, Jessica, points me to another direction, and I go sit down. They're makeup artists, so they do test makeup. But I was just like, all right, well, I guess I'm just gonna go with the flow, not question it, just trust it. And then Jessica, and there was time for pictures, and I was like, all right. So the first couple of days just landing and observing, and I just had to trust that if I need to be somewhere, or if I need to know something, they will figure out a way to let me know. So it also takes a lot of responsibility away from you, because you do not know. So you can actually just sit down and relax, and and also I became very good at reading body language during that trip. I started to understand what's happening around me, even if I couldn't understand what they were saying. But we figured out ways, and I guess the first thing I learned was harikat, which means action. Because that's very important for me to know, So I actually have I took a tattoo. It says action, but it's like in Farsi, it's harikat, and so that was the first word I needed to know. So I know when it's my cue to act.
Hey everyone, sorry to stop the show, but we have to pay some bills around here. And to do that, I wanted to point out a couple things I have on offer at my site, shaneborza.com. If you scroll down to my courses, you can see I have both a content creator live class and a DIY version. These teach you everything you need to know from a production standpoint, so you can either get a writing project done, an audio project, or a film project. Doesn't matter, it works for everyone. If you scroll down, you can see some of my clients and some of the testimonials people have left telling you how helpful this has been for them. So I hope you check that out. You can also go to my shop and you can see all that I have on offer, to include coaching programs, audio stuff like soundtracks, film production stuff. I have filmmaker bundles, all types of things you might need to help you get your art out into the world. As you can see, I also have a number of books. They are all on Apple Books. So you can go to my site and get them directly, or you can go to Apple Books, put my name in, and then you can see all the books there. They are easily downloadable and you can read them on an iPad or something like that. There are coaching books here. There are poetry and photo books here. And I'm very excited. I just updated my Film Notes workbook and Film Notes book. They are expanded and updated 2023 editions. So please check those out if you want some extra stuff to help teach you production. And now back to the show.
So first, those are great stories. So I'm glad that you shared those. But I think, I was laughing a little bit because, again, it's like, I don't know if you consciously thought this or not, and in that production, but thinking when you said like learning the body language, I'm like, oh, stunts and martial arts, you have to be reading the people.
Yeah.
You have to be, so again, I'm seeing a way for all these different skill sets you've accrued from all these different ways to kind of and reinforce themselves, just paying attention, but also like you mentioned, the trust and, doing a little bit of stunt work 10 years ago. That was one of the things that I learned is, you have to be able to trust your team, you have to trust your trainer, you have to trust the stunt leader. So that's usually a small part of a bigger production. But again, once you kind of learn or just even trusting yourself, like, hey, I've been on set before, I know how this works. I just am adding in this layer of communication difference. Because it's not that you are communicating, you're just communicating in a different way. So I'm glad that you were recognizing all those things. The other thing I wanted to bring up and really highlight how there's all these layers of prep that especially someone like you has to do, because you don't just have to like learn the script and know the story and develop the character and know all the dialogue, but you also have to maintain, like you said, the physical fitness. And if you're doing action and stunts, you have to know the choreography and you have to be able to like rehearse all that stuff. So there's just all layers of stuff. So you mentioned like deadlifting the bed and like doing some things. So how are you able to handle like those 10 layers of things with all these other challenges?
So if I have a day off, I might go like, okay, so is there somebody I can go and practice the stunt choreo with, and so it depends on, it completely depends on the scene, what I'm about to do next. So if I have a scene with a lot of dialogue, very emotional, that's going to be my first priority, and I'm going to work on that more, and then do the stunts, practice the stunts. But actually, because of the pandemic, we were very late in the schedule, so we didn't have much time to practice the stunts. So there was a lot we did on the spot. But yeah, it's the thing is also with this character, I did quite a lot of work before I got there. So I did a lot of prep work before. I knew where my character comes from. What I did like this, I did this kind of, how should I call it? For all the scenes, I did like a certain energy chart. Where should my energy be? What emotion am I going through? Is it from 1 to 10? Where should I be? Because when you, especially when the schedule is tight and you might not film something in chronological order, I just want to make sure that I have that order for myself. So if I shoot the end scene before I do the beginning scene, I want to know that, okay, my energy level need to be at this point here. So that helped me a lot. So I would just like go through that before, and then just the exercise I did before acting was just to go through. I was moving a lot in my room, going in and out of different emotions, just to keep myself open. And yeah, pretty much that. And with the communicating with the stunt people, that was very interesting. Because when you do stunts and also these stunts, what I actually had to kick somebody in the head, like actually have contact. And that's first time, in so many years I've done stunts that I actually have to have contact that my foot actually hit somebody in the head. So it's extremely important that the timing is right. If you go 1 centimeter too low, you're gonna hit somebody in the eye or the nose, So the way we worked, what I worked with these stuntmen was a lot with the rhythm, because we couldn't communicate that much. So it was just like, okay, boom, 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 So we would figure out a rhythm, so both would have that rhythm, and that seemed to work. And then, of course, when you make a lot of sounds, that helps a lot, because the other person kind of can recognize, okay, now that hit is coming. So it's really important to have a lot of sounds when you do action. I hope that answered the questions.
It does, and it again brought up another thought of, like, you have this music background, and there are certain things that are universal. Stunts in action is universal. The language is different. The rhythm or the beat of music. So it makes sense to me, especially with your background in music, like the rhythm, the sounds. I mean, there is a musicality to that, even if you're not actually playing music, to help. I mean,
yeah, absolutely.
Dance choreography, stunt choreography, it's different, but it has a timing and it has a rhythm.
It does, especially with this one. I remember it was when we did one of the main fighting scenes. It was like in a very old construction building, or not old, sorry, it was new, but it was not like very unfinished. So there's a lot of holes everywhere, and if you fall into one of those, you like drop 20, 20 stories or something. So it was 40 degrees Celsius. That's, I don't know what's in Fahrenheit, but like very, 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 very hot. It's kind of like Florida weather, in a hot summer. But, I was having, of course, I had to be fully dressed. So I had like, everything has to be covered. It was very, very hot. Very hot, because, you have to cover, the neck, the hair, everything, So it was pretty hot. And we ran out of time to practice beforehand, and we had like this fight scene where we were like 4 or 5 people at the same time, and it was like one shot thing. So you cannot go with the inserts because it's shot from an angle, so everything has to work. That was stressful. That really pushed me over like my own new boundary, so to speak, because you have to have the acting there, the timing, with everybody has to be correct. The movements have to be perfect. You cannot hesitate. You have to remember the movements very, very fast. So there's like this very high pressure on kind of thing. So, but when you're in those kind of moments, I think that's like when it pushes you over a boundary you didn't know you were able to do, then everything below that becomes easier.
So this is a great segue into the reason for the show. I was getting those notes from people. So it sounds like you kind of almost like leveled up or realized you could maybe do more than you thought you could. So talk to me a little bit more about, maybe in particular around that production in particular, what some notes or takeaways or lessons might be, but also just in looking back at like your career as a whole, like you mentioned, you have like 14 years now accrued and all these things, what's some wisdom and experience, maybe things you wish you'd known, earlier, or things that you might really want to just put out there for other people?
Well, in general, one thing, like the way I look at it when it comes to set, I think it's really important that you have your own things together. So that means you're prepared. You take everything with you that you need. Like I never expect there to even be a catering, because I never know. I've been in a lot of different productions, and so I think it's really important that you have everything you need to make yourself comfortable. So depending on the weather, you have enough clothes. I've done that mistake so many times, going in minus 20 degrees for over 20 hours, So it's like, it's colder than the freezer. And so when you do that mistake, you do it a couple of times and you never do that mistake again. So, and also to bring a good, positive vibe to the set. That's the best you can do. So you're prepared. You're not to ask for anything. Just have your things, water bottles, snacks, whatever you need, phone charger, things, and then just focus on what you need to do and try to bring a good vibe to the set. I think that's the best, because because the film environment, it can be very stressful, and everybody's in the same boat. Everyone who's there all those hours, we're all in the same boat. So that's why I think it's really important, especially as an actor, not to, not to have that, arrogance. You have to, I think it's really important to come with that, be humble, because everybody's just as stressed out. But so coming from that, and coming from doing a lot of indie movies, and also producing myself and doing a lot together with friends, heartfelt projects, I came with that mindset to Iran as well. But funny enough, I've never been so treated so well on the set as in Iran. Like the hospitality was just, it was just crazy. Like it was even more than in Japan. It was absolutely out of this world. I did not expect that at all, and it was a very, very positive experience. They're very, very kind people and always took care of me so well. So I was very surprised.
I think just in general, that's another kind of truism about the industry. Is part of it is like what you're talking about kind of across this whole conversation about just like putting in the work and showing up and being ready. Like you've developed these skill sets, you've taken the time, like you said, you really knew your character beforehand. I love that idea of like the energy scale to know like where your character arcs need to be, practicing, rehearsing the fitness, all these things that you, or even the practical things like I have a backpack with all my stuff. You come ready in all these different ways, but you're also coming open and saying like, oh, I'm going to say yes to this. I'm going to literally go. You bring that trust, like you mentioned. If we're going in kind of closed, then we miss out on connecting with those other people, even just the story of, oh, I'm going to go to this film festival, and then that's going to enable me to do this film in Australia. And then sometimes we don't see the like staircase or the steps, but they all do kind of link together.
Yeah.
And we can be on 100 different sets and not stay in touch with anyone. And you'll probably still find other things, but it's so much easier if we can collaborate and build teams in those partnerships. Again, I talked earlier about like, well, the stunt team's like a small unit, and you get to know each other well, you train together, you all know each other. Maybe you come together to the production, then you go to the next production. But you also have that spillover and those connections because, every film is a lot of departments. And even if on a film, each department's one person, you still need all those people working together to have the film come together. So talking about all that to kind of encapsulate everything that you'd mentioned, but also wanting to kind of jump on, you just mentioned producing. So what are some notes you might have about like when you had to make your music video, like making your own projects? Like what have you learned there? What have been some good lessons or notes that you might want to pass on?
Don't do it. Just kidding. Oh wow. Well, especially working with like low budget things, first of all, to make the storyline doable, one of the first things I think about, like if you want to make a very like a low budget film, is locations and how many people, how many characters are they involved. Like, are you gonna go with and there's like a big crowd of people, doing something. Okay, where are we gonna get these people from? That's gonna cost, and what kind of locations. So sometimes like with this music video, I did it based on, I was like, okay, I need something cool, something that's goes like, wow, cool. I was like, okay, that's action, that I can do. Okay, I need to find a place that doesn't cost anything. So I found like an abandoned factory. Okay, cool. So I started to then build a storyline around that, and also to think about how many days, how much can you do in one location, how much can you do in another location. So those are things like budget wise, and to always try to find, like, there was always a way to find different routes. For instance, with me, I have like a lot with my friends, I scratch their back, they scratch mine. So I do projects for free for them, and they did some for me. To think out of the box when you need some things. You don't have to always pay for everything. So that's one thing come to think about. Make sure the catering is good. Hungry people are not fun to work with. Make sure that, make sure there's food. That's important. And to be thankful, have somebody to help you out with things. But yeah, to be honest, I don't like so much producing. I like to come up with storylines and things, but the production itself, I can do that because I think I have a bit of ADHD, so I'm good at like focusing on like hyper focusing on too many things. But I've done that also with tours, going with the band on tours, and it's not my favorite, to be honest, because it's kind of the creative part of my brain and this part of my brain, they're like boom, 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 yeah. So. But one thing I came to think about related to the former question about like notes, to think about like if somebody's just starting the acting career and it's in the beginning of this, like coming on set, and this whole set environment is new. One good thing to think about is that don't go into your character the moment you get on set. You don't have to stay ready all the time, because that takes a lot of energy. And it may be that by the time, you may have to wait a lot. And by the time they ask you to be in front of the camera, you have used up your mind so much already on that. You have like on that emotion or what you're about to do, that it gets dry. So that's why normally what I do is that I ask them to let me know an hour before. And then I just chill, I relax, listen to music, I talk with people. And then an hour before, that's when I start to, get into that character. Of course, I mean, depends on what kind of method you do. If you know, some actors prefer to be in that character the whole day and play around with that character. And that's not wrong either. But that's what works for me. And then also I learned to ask what frame it is. Because if sometimes they film you and you may think it's a close-up, but it's not a close-up. And then it's more important, if it's not a close-up, to just have it in your body. So instead of doing that one tear, they may not even see it. So don't use up that tear, save it for the close-ups. So yeah, that came to mind.
Those are both really important notes. And from my perspective, I'm usually on the other side of the camera, not an actor or a performer so much, is that communication, but also going back to what you mentioned, the awareness. Like, you're very aware, it sounds like, of what's going on and what you need to do for different scenes or different shots. You're very aware of like what the process you need is. I mean, just being an athlete, it reminded me, it's like being in rounds. Like, you have to rest. You're not going to fight 30 minutes straight. You're going to fight, 3-minute rounds. And that's how you recover to keep going out to the next round. So it's like, take each shot, each scene. Okay, we're going to recover so we can go out as fresh as possible and give the best performance again. And especially when it's like stunts or action or something like that, you physically need to recover. Because sometimes, as you know, you're not just shooting that fight scene once. You're shooting it all day long sometimes. So I'm glad there's some parallels there as well. Now, before we start to wrap up here in a little bit, I wanted to just ask you, you spoke about a couple of these projects, the 3 albums, the music video, the Australian movie, the Iranian movie. Where can people see your work?
There's a lot they can see on my YouTube channel, Jessica Wolff. There you can see like the music videos and some fight scenes and some short movies even. I think the movie Layers of Lies, the Iranian movie, can be seen, I think, in US and Canada, some streaming service. Maybe it's a Google away, I think. Hotel Underground, that's the Australian movie. I think for now maybe it's only in Australia. I'm not completely sure about that, but there's a lot of like these short movies online. So either through my channel or HMC Indie, it's there you can see a lot of cool stunt stuff. with the stunt team I work with, and yeah, of course, for the music on Spotify.
Now, what's coming up in any of these different aspects of your career? Do you have more music plans, more film plans? You know, we are still pretty new to this new year. Do you have anything on the horizon that's coming out or that you're looking forward to getting started?
Well, I'm gonna do some stunts for a TV series in Finland in about a month, and then it's actually quite quiet. But when it's quiet, I go to stunt workshops in Finland or abroad. So I've been working with wires now and full body burns, which is really fun. It's a lot of fun. And yeah, then I'm working on some new music as well. And so hopefully I'll get to release some new music at some point. But yeah, just keeping my eyes open for opportunities.
And finally, just wanted to ask where people can either connect with you or follow you. You mentioned YouTube and Spotify, but do you have any socials or a website or anything you'd like people to see what else you're doing or to connect and follow you?
I would say Instagram is where I'm most active. It's Jessica Wolff or at Miss J Wolff. So there you can see a little bit of everything, just like lifestyle things, stunts, extreme sports, fight scenes, some music.
Everything that's awesome.
Yeah, well, things that I'm up to.
Well, I'll make sure to have not only all those links will be on the screen when the video is edited, but also we'll have them in the show notes so people can easily find that. So just want to thank you for taking some time. I know it's a little bit of coordinating when we're in opposite sides of the world to figure out a morning for me and an evening for you that works.
Yeah,
It was also, just great to catch up again after so many years. Sometimes
absolutely.
more time than we notice goes by.
Yeah, went fast.
But wait, Jessica gave us one more bonus video from Layers of Lies. Check it out.
Time is up, please wake up. We're turning into ashes. Let's get out while we're still burn. I've been caught, scream and cry, but still you cannot hear me. Show me the way to find back to your heart. Sleeping beast, you're out of time. Near the end, open your eyes. I can't wait much longer now. I found my wings and I'm ready to fly. Baby, scream my name. Come face me in the storm. Don't leave me alone in the rain. Baby, scream my name. Come shake me to the core. When there is pain, there's a spark and a flame. There is love. There's love. There's love. Show me your pain.
So thanks everyone for watching. As a reminder, if you are listening to this as audio only, you can go to my YouTube channel and actually watch the show. And if you're on the YouTube channel now, you can always stream this on any of the podcast platforms. These episodes come out once a month. So please tune in to the next episode next month, but also you can go back and listen to previous guests from the first 3 seasons. So I hope you're all making new projects. Please reach out. I'd love to see your work, and I'll see you on the next episode.
Thanks for watching. If you'd like to support the show, please click on the link below. You can also contact me at my website if you have any questions about filmmaking or anything else. Off to the side, you'll see a couple of my books, Film Notes and the Film Notes Workbook. I encourage you to check those out if you'd like to learn more about filmmaking. See you on the next episode.
Scene 1, Apple, take 1.